Good morning, everyone. It's 9:30, and I'd like to welcome you to the March 2nd, 2020 meeting. In response to COVID, we continue to hold council meetings electronically, and members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting of council by accessing the streaming on our Middlesex Centre YouTube channel. There are no additions to the agenda. I'll ask councillors if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we can move to the adoption of minutes as we have no delegations or presentations of note for this meeting. The motion before us is that the minutes of the council meeting held on February 16th, 2022 be adopted as printed. Do I have a mover, please? And Councillor Scott, Councillor Heffernan, anyone opposed? Seeing none, then we can move to item 6, to the consent agenda. There are 3 items here. These are typically received as one motion, but we can ask if we'd like to speak to an item or pull something for further action. Do I see any hands with respect to an item? Councillor Arts?
Through you, Madam Mayor, this is just for clarifications. It was a late addition to the consent agenda. I'd like to know where the end of Born Drain is. My memory's failing me on this one.
Thank you. I'll look to staff then.
Through the chair, I can provide a general description of the location. It was a new drain that was created at the end of the 2021 calendar year. Generally, it starts at the northeast of Adelaide and 14 Mile Road, and it crosses over to the southwest corner of that intersection. I can bring up a location map of that if we'd like to look at it a little closer.
Councillor Arts?
I'm good, thank you.
Alrighty, I saw Councillor Kate's hand, I believe.
Good morning. Through you, Madam Mayor, I think to James. I'm just wondering on your the election signs, could you give me an example of the third-party advertisement and registered third party? What does that mean exactly? Like, is it a sign at a business, or I'm just not sure.
Absolutely.
I'll look to the clerk.
Absolutely. Through the chair, and thank you for the question, Councillor Cates. Third-party registrations were something new that was created in the 2018 election, and it was established primarily for groups, individuals, or organizations who wish to advertise on behalf of a candidate. So an individual, an organization, or a group can register in order to advertise on behalf of a candidate in the election. An example that I would give of a third-party advertiser would be a local media company, such as a radio station or other publication that intends to publish advertisements in support of or in regards to a candidate or generally regarding the election. So that was created in 2018, and it's a process for those individuals to register with the municipality, similar to a candidate if they intend to essentially participate in the campaign activities on behalf of that candidate. Does that help answer your question?
It does, thank you. What I was thinking was that it was like if a business put on their sign out front, you know, we support Sue Cates or whatever. That's what I was thinking was third party, but maybe that's more of an endorsement than an advertisement.
Through the chair, that's correct. There are situations where what you're describing is more of an endorsement. If a group or a labor organization, as another example, which wishes to campaign on behalf of a candidate, they're required to register with the clerk. So similar to the nomination process, which begins on May the 2nd, that's also when the nomination process for third-party advertisers begins, and they can begin to register with the municipality.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Is there anything else? I don't see any hands. The motion before us is that the consent items 6.1 through 6.3 listed on the agenda for March 2nd, 2022 be adopted as recommended. A mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Shipley and Councillor Cates. Is anyone opposed? I don't see hands. That carries. Moving on to staff reports, we've got one item here, 7.1, and our CAO, Michael Tululo, will present that report.
Thank you, Mayor DeVete. Through the mayor to members of council, the intent of this report is to provide an overview of findings of the final report. Last spring, the municipality applied for a federal grant through, it's called CAN Export. The purpose of CAN Export is to help attract industry and bring foreign direct investments to Canada throughout the provinces. We were successful in receiving a grant, and the purpose of the grant was to undertake a study. And the study was to examine growth possibilities geared to business industry along the 401-402 corridor. And so this was commissioned to Watson's and Stantec to complete the study. And it's now before you. It was started last spring, summer, and we now have the final report before us. And the rationale for this report is to speak to how it's possible to bring and attract commercial and industrial growth along and the establishment of a potential business park opportunity. And so the report has a number of appendices to it, and it speaks to essentially examples of other types of business parks. There's a section from Stantec Consulting that did a general breakdown in terms of a financial analysis to do the costing for servicing. And so this is all important to help us get an understanding of what type of investment and commitment it would take. I'll share my screen, and the other part to the report, as you can see, also identifies certain locations, and the consultant has selected one location, which is southeast of Delaware, which provides the maximum exposure to the Highway 402 should down the road in future some sort of industrial commercial investment take place in the municipality. And so that is outlined in the figure that I'm highlighting here along the 402 corridor. And so the intent was to do this concurrently with the comprehensive official plan review, which we're in the final stages of doing right now. And it gels nicely in the sense that this has been taken into consideration based on the council direction. We have a public meeting coming up on March the 16th, but for the purpose of this report, it's to give an overview and a bit of a snapshot, an initial snapshot to council on specifically to the report findings that Watson did for this grant opportunity. And it just speaks to the possibility to diversify our tax base. And I think more importantly, use this as a marketing tool in future once we complete the official plan review process, where we can now speak to potential industries, speak to other government officials that Middlesex Center has done the proper analysis to show that we can and are willing to bring industry to our municipality. And so that's the intent of the report that's before you. I'm happy to take any questions from council.
Thank you for that report. I'll look to council for questions and clarification. Comments, Councillor Heffernan, then I've got Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Thank you. Through Mayor DeVete to Michael. So I was just a bit confused with foreign direct development. So is this in addition to attracting local industries or province-wide or whatever? So this is meant to also attract any foreign industry to come to Middlesex Center as well, and that we would welcome them as well.
Through the chair to Councillor Heffernan, that's correct. The grant CAN Export is a federal institution that speaks to attracting industry from outside our borders. So we applied for this grant, and it's through that mechanism. However, the intent of our study is to look at attracting development, whether it's within province or out of province. And so this should help us either way. At the end of the day, our main goal is to bring investment to our municipality.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Brennan, and then I see Councillor Cates as well.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Michael. I realize this is very early stages in this whole process, and it will be a fairly lengthy process. The dollar figures are pretty high too to make this happen. Are there more opportunities for grants to help get this underway, and if there is someone from, say, out of the province or out of the country wanting to come, is there a possibility to leverage them to help make the cost work so that we can get this going?
Through the chair to Deputy Mayor, that's a good question. The analysis that Stantec did is indirect to the specific locations identified in the report, which is an escalating cost, so it is high. Two things. Number one, as we look at growing the community of Delaware, there is possibility that our servicing costs will be more attractable and more feasible. So as we diversify the growth, the cost to bring servicing to the area should help be minimized over time. But more importantly, secondly, to your point, this lays the groundwork and the foundation. And so there's nothing stopping us from looking at other grant opportunities and speaking to other government officials or industry, such as an Amazon or any affiliates to Amazon who are across the road, so to speak, on the highway, where we can maybe leverage other types of companies and opportunities to help us pay for servicing and to bring this type of investment to our municipality. So as you say, this is, I guess, that's the groundwork to get the ball rolling. And hopefully we can build on this down the road in the future.
Okay, I think then Councillor Cates was next, and I see Councillor Scott as well.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Michael. Just curious, when you put the map up on your screen with the boundary, so when we had saw this information before, there was one that went further down with the round curve on it. Are you saying that they selected that outline, not the other one? Like, has that been?
Through the chair to Councillor Cates, that's correct. That's the preferred location at this point in time. But the study also outlines other potential areas along that corridor. The purpose was to look at opportunities along the corridor, similar to other municipalities. If you look at Oxford County and the growth that's taking place along the 401 and 403, I wanted this study to replicate something similar that positions Middlesex Center to be the next place to bring business. And so there's a preferred location identified in 4.1 of this report, but there's also other locations, and potentially this could be phased. This is a long-term vision for our municipality to bring and grow our base, and potentially sky's the limits. Maybe we can see all areas bring this type of development and down the road in future when we look back.
Excellent. I just wasn't sure if they'd selected, so that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Scott, I think I saw your hand too.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good morning, everyone. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Michael. I think this is a great study to have for us, to look at for the future. The 402 corridor, I think, is really open there for us and exposes us to some real good advertising and maybe whatever partners join with us. I know this report was done specifically on employment lands only, so looking at some of the details, I can see where we're going to need to make some changes, obviously, and some stuff to make it more suitable to work with our plan to get Delaware online. I'm assuming when this was done too, they weren't really taking into consideration that Delaware may be getting sewers. Is that correct?
Through the chair, correct. Yes, this is a general feasibility study to look at attraction of investment.
Yeah. Okay. And so, when I first looked at it, I think I've sent out some emails to you guys. I certainly see the second choice to be more preferable, and also gives us lots of coverage on to almost all we have for that matter. But I know going forward, I think this would be a great tool to work with, and just want to make those comments. Thank you.
All righty then. I I don't see any more hands. I'll just make a comment too that I'm very pleased to see this. It's something that we've been talking about for quite some time. We're very aware that our commercial and our residential and agricultural tax splits aren't what we'd like them to be, and that we do need to diversify. It's also great to have staff looking forward. It's always better, I think, to be proactive than reactive when the opportunity, either domestic or international, comes knocking on our door. Being ready to have a conversation and having specifics in our back pocket is just being prepared and makes it smoother. And I think maybe sends a message about how serious we are with working together with those that may be knocking to get into our areas. So thank you for that. It's exciting news. Moving on then, we are going to go into public meetings now. So, oh, sorry, just a second. I forgot to get a mover and a seconder for that report. So the motion before us is that the CAO report number 8, 2022 regarding the employment area expansion analysis file report be received for information. And mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Scott and Councillor Cates. Any opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, so we need a motion now to go into planning meeting, and that is that the Committee of Adjustment moves that we go from our meeting into a public planning meeting at 9:46 a.m. pursuant to the Planning Act as amended to consider the planning applications that we have on our agenda. A mover, please. Councillor Cates, Deputy Mayor Brennan. Any opposed? Thank you. So I'm going to just make sure that everyone knows how we're going to move through this. Again, the members of the public that wish to receive further notification on any of the applications that are being considered today, I ask that you send an email to the planning department at planning@middlesexcentre.on.ca requesting further notification. Please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record. Those who have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address council and provide comments on the applications. In keeping with our procedural bylaw and our R-zone policy, I would remind all of our meeting participants to use respectful language and to uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. Now, the procedure is going to be the same as we go through. First of all, I'll ask the planner to explain the purpose of the application and the hearing and to present their staff report. Then the applicant or their agent will have a chance to speak to their application. The public will be asked for comments, and we want to make sure that if you please state your name and address, that comments can then be reflected properly in the minutes. Councillors will then have a chance to ask questions of the applicant and or staff, and then we're going to consider motions regarding the applications. Now, there are 3 items on our agenda today, but you'll probably remember from last time that these are in the same area, so they will be dealt with in the same way. 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3 will be dealt with together as they relate to the same project file. So these are the 8.1, 2, and 3 respectively are the zoning bylaw amendments for Poplar Woods, Valley A, and Valley B. So Marion Cabral is our planner on this file. If you'd like to give your report, please. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Madam Mayor and to Council. So I will just share my screen really quickly. Okay, so I will present to Council, as you just had mentioned, an overview of all 3 applications that are noted on the agenda for the 3 separate properties. The development proposals are all located within the Coldstream and Poplar Hill Hamlet area and are affected by the same policies and constraints. As such, staff have been reviewing them concurrently as well as comprehensively. So the first application is known as Poplar Woods Development, and that's the one on the westernmost portion of Poplar Hill. The municipality and the county received an application for a plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment. The second application is known as Valley View A, and this is located just west of the Valley View Public School. The applicant has also submitted an application for a plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment. And finally, we have Valley View B, which is located just west of Coldstream Road. The applicant submitted a plan of subdivision application, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment applications. So it should be noted that all these 3 applications are located within the settlement area. A majority of the lands that abut these properties are located outside of the settlement area and are agricultural or are already developed with single-family homes, as we see along Ilderton Road. The first application is the Poplar Woods application, which proposes 10 building lots for single-family homes that range in size from 0.2 to 0.48 hectares. There's also a large block that's proposed for the southern portion of the lands, and this would be considered for open space as a result of the significant woodland and other natural heritage features within this area. The official plan amendment application is requesting for a special policy area for this site, and this would be applied on the entirety of the developable areas to allow the creation of 10 lots on private servicing. I will note at this time that the current official plan policies only permit the development of plans of subdivision or condominium with 3 lots or more on full municipal services only. And additionally, the applicant is also requesting to rezone the lands to open space, specifically for the large block, as well as the Hamlet residential first density zone for the lands to be developed. And this Hamlet residential first density zone is consistent with the rest of the zoning for the Poplar Hill and Coldstream area. So next I will discuss the Valley View A proposal development. Development proposal. The applicant is proposing a total of 13 lots on this site for single family homes. These lots range in size from 0.2 hectares to 0.23 hectares in area. There's also block for stormwater management pond, which would accommodate a dry pond facility. And again, the applicant has applied for an official plan amendment requesting a special policy area for the development of new lots on private servicing, as well as to rezone the lands to a single Hamlet residential first density zone. And finally, we'll look at the Valley View B development proposal. This applicant is proposing a total of 13 building lots as well for single family homes. Again, the size ranges from approximately 0.23 hectares to 0.48 hectares in area. Again, there are blocked for stormwater management pond. And I will note at this time that there is an existing draft plan approved condominium for these lands, which could permit the development of 5 residential units on a private roadway. This draft plan approved plan of condominium is still current and existing. So if there is no development proposed through this plan of subdivision, the condominium can certainly go ahead as proposed. And again, the applicant has requested an official plan amendment for a special policy area to permit the creation of 13 lots on private servicing, as well as to rezone the lands to a single Hamlet residential first density zone. So in January 2021, we had our last public meeting where staff presented the applications at a public meeting and advised the public that the applications would be reviewed concurrently to address specifically the water quality and quantity issues in the Hamlet area as a result of these applications. The applicant provided the municipality with the appropriate studies and reports, including a hydrogeological assessment, where they were peer reviewed by third-party consultants on behalf of the municipality. The peer reviewer concluded that although not all comments were addressed from their initial letter dating back to February 2021, the supplemental information is sufficient to mitigate the municipality's risk in approving the draft plan of subdivision, and providing the appropriate conditions are included within draft plan approval. You can go ahead with a further study and additional work to be completed, which will support the development in the future. So typically we would propose draft plan conditions, which would allow the applicant to go ahead with further more detailed studies and reports, and this would need to be reviewed and completed prior to final plan approval. The applicant had also hosted a town hall meeting with members of the public present to review these studies, as well as the overview of the methodology that was taken to review them. Members of the public were also given the opportunity to ask questions and to the applicant, and as well as their engineers directly. In addition to the servicing component, the applicant had also provided the municipality with a traffic opinion letter, which noted that the 3 proposed developments will generate approximately 41 vehicles in both directions at the absolute maximum at any given time of day. And this was considered to be minimal and can be accommodated within the roadway capacity along Ilderton Road. So notice of this public meeting was circulated to area residents, and at the time of writing my report, I did not receive any new comments from the public. However, I did include comments and questions that were heard at the previous public meetings, as well as the applicant-initiated town hall meeting. Leading up to this meeting, we did receive correspondence from residents, and I believe that has been shared with council and has been shared with the applicants as well. These comments include requests to have development approvals staggered, as well as obtain information and further study on the test pumping rates to ensure the viability of potable water for the future of the hamlets. Some residents have requested that a surety or some sort of guarantee be collected from the applicants in the event that the neighboring wells experience issues with quality and quantity, especially where residents are not going to be connecting to public water supply in the foreseeable future. There's also further questioning on the traffic study and the traffic generation, as well as pedestrian safety from the developments. Additionally, a resident had also provided reference to a previous OMB or tribunal decision from 2011 for a previous subdivision application. The concerns related to private servicing were also noted at that time. Additionally, concerns were raised, including other concerns were raised, including municipal taxes, safety around stormwater management ponds, creating a new roadway south of the public school to direct traffic on Road, and that new roadway would be consistent with the previous subdivision application that the municipality received but was not approved. So staff did not receive any new information from agencies. However, we have been working closely with the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority to ensure the long-term protection of the woodland and natural heritage features nearby to the developments, as well as addressing some of those stormwater management concerns. Additionally, the county engineer did confirm that roadway improvements along Ilderton Road would be needed for these developments, but that the installation of the sidewalks along Ilderton Road, especially those that are requested by the public near the public school, would need to be determined by the municipality. So staff have reviewed the comments and information provided by the applicants, and we are looking at ways to ensuring that the negative impacts and risks from the development are negated or minimized as much as possible. At this time, the reports are presented only for information purposes to provide a status update for these developments, and no recommendation is made at this time. We will continue to accept feedback from the public and provide council with a recommendation at a later date. I'll be happy to answer any at this time.
Thank you for that presentation. I will look to the clerk and confirm that Mr. Allen is here to speak.
Yes, we've got Mr. Allen on the line.
There he is. I see him now. Thank you. The floor is yours, Mr. Allen, if you'd like to comment on the planning report on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good morning, members of council. Again, my name is Scott Allen. I'm with MHBC Planning, and we're acting on behalf of the applicants for both Poplar Woods and the Valley View A and B subdivision applications. And Madam Mayor, with me today are several members of our project team. I believe they're at a different level on the YouTube situation, which hopefully James can address as need be. But with me are Steve Brown and Lucas Grabowski from AGM Engineering, Frank Caloza from JFM Environmental, Eric Buchanan and Dr. Reinhard Zapata-Bloza from EXP Services, and Elizabeth Cormier, whose firm provides legal expertise to the applicants. Our team is available to answer questions from council relating to these proposals. And at this time, I'd like to provide a few brief remarks to supplement Mr. Brell's presentation. At the outset, I'd like to advise council that the project team has worked diligently with staff from the County of Middlesex, Middlesex Center, and the SCRCA to ensure that each proposed subdivision is developed in accordance with accepted standards and that the comments of area residents and review agencies have been taken into consideration during project planning. Now, with respect to public consultation, as Ms. Cabral noted, there have been several public meetings relating to these subdivision proposals, including the neighborhood information meeting that we hosted in January. The intent of that meeting was to update the community on the status of project planning and to provide a forum for public comment. Our project team experts were in attendance to answer questions and to address concerns were raised, and the meeting was recorded, and that recording was made available to the public. As outlined in that neighborhood meeting, through the application review process, we identified 3 primary concerns with the proposed developments, and I'll briefly touch on each issue. Firstly, there's a concern that servicing the proposed subdivisions by way of private wells and individual septic systems could adversely impact the quality and quantity of groundwater in the community. The project team is satisfied that the hydrogeologic and servicing studies completed for these 3 proposals demonstrate that an appropriate servicing arrangement can be designed for this development. Additionally, as outlined in Ms. Cabral's report, the hydrogeologic studies were peer-reviewed, and it was concluded by the independent expert that the level of analysis provided is sufficient to allow the municipality to proceed with draft plan approval conditions in each case. Secondly, there was concern raised that the Poplar Woods and 2 Valley View subdivisions projects could generate traffic-related impacts due to increased traffic volumes. This concern was evaluated by Paradigm Transportation Solutions, who concluded that the traffic impacts on Ilderton Road resulting from all 3 proposed subdivisions would be minimal and can be accommodated by the existing roadway capacity. Paradigm also concluded that the proposed street connections of the 3 subdivisions to Ilderton Road are appropriate for safe traffic operations based on its review of sightlands and driveway separation. Finally, there's a concern that the three developments would result in rapid expansion of the community, which would potentially impact on its character. At the neighborhood information meeting, we addressed this by illustrating that these project sites are located within a designated settlement area, that they're distributed throughout the community, that a limited number of new units are proposed in each case, in each infill project that is, and the proposed lot sizes are in keeping with subdivision lot sizes in the community. In light of these considerations and commentaries set out in MHBC's planning reports, in our opinion, each of the proposals are compatible with the existing community character. To conclude, by addressing these concerns and others raised throughout the planning process, we are satisfied that the Poplar Woods and Valley View proposals are appropriate for these lands and will contribute positively to the community of Poplar Hill Coldstream. We therefore respectfully request that Council advance all 3 applications for further consideration. Thank you, and we'll gladly answer questions Council members have.
Thank you for that presentation. Then I'll look to councillors to ask their questions and get clarifications. We'll start with Councillor Cates.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, I think to Marion. So just a couple of questions on the so the Valley View B. So first of all, on the Poplar Wood and the Valley View B, I see that there's land behind. I think I just want to confirm. You said that on the Poplar Wood, that will just be open space, that it's significant woodland. So it's a part of it, but it's not a part of the building spot, just clarifying. And the Valley View B, could you re-explain what you said about the condo, like where on the map? So all of it is already approved for condo, or there's one section that's approved for condos that could go ahead if this wasn't approved today? Or, you know, if this plan didn't move forward.
Right, sure. Through Madam Mayor, through you. So with regard to the Poplar Woods development, that large open space block is part of the development, but obviously it's not developable. It is within the settlement area, but it would be protected in perpetuity through zoning and through the official plan amendment, which would not apply to that part of the land. Everything south of that is outside of the hamlet area. And then with regard to Valley View B, there is a plan of condominium for the entirety of that land. So it's the same lands that are affected, and only 5 units are draft approved for that site.
Thank you. And then second, in the public meeting, I was sort of surprised to hear that it sounds like most people have a sand point instead of a drilled well. So I certainly, even in the past, in my own personal experience, I certainly understand the concern about the water. But, you know, there's lots of talk of the hydrogeo studies, et cetera. So would are these studies that have been done, is that what will be referenced? Or if this was to move forward, would there be condition of further studies to ensure the water quality and supply?
I think I can answer this. I don't see Rob on the line, but typically we do address or ask that the applicant provide a more comprehensive study for hydrology before final plan approval. So the study that we see today, and as mentioned in the peer reviewed comments, is that not all comments and concerns were addressed by the applicant, but that would be completed more comprehensively after final plan or draft plan approval.
Is that everything, Councillor?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
All right, I saw Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Arts your hand as well. So we'll start with you, Debbie.
I just want a point of clarification. Is this all the people that are listening in that want to make comments? Like, is this our only opportunity to make comment, or is there more people that want to speak before we make our comment?
Well, there were a number of people, residents, but no one has, the clerk hasn't indicated that anyone's actually going to be attending unless someone has put up their hand and wants to respond to something now.
Through
So,
the chair, we
yeah,
have a number of members of the public that are on the line, and they will
Okay.
have the opportunity to speak today. We'll be
Okay.
asking for the raise hand feature following the presentation from the applicants today, and all public attendees will have the opportunity to speak. The public attendees did not indicate in advance to Mayor DeViet's point that they wish to speak. However, they will have that opportunity today.
So this is my time to speak then.
well, I think we'll come back to council, but if you wanted to ask about the content that was, well, we have 3 applications here. Rather than remember
Yeah.
everything and come back to this, I thought we'd get the questions for our planner and for Mr. Allen. If you want clarification now, then we'll move through. I'll be asking everyone to raise their hand, as the clerk indicated. Now we do have some public members of the public, people who want to speak. So we'll go to them. Just if you want to clarify your points right now, maybe that will clarify what they want to ask too. So
Okay, well,
I think you should go ahead and ask your question.
okay, I have a few. The first one I have is, so I see that Hawks Ridge is a fairly large development, and it was built a number of years ago. And I'm just wondering, were any of those people contacted as to, well, first of all, was it done in stages or was it all done at once? I can't remember. And secondly, did have any of those people been contacted, Hawks Ridge, as well as the development on Ashley Lane and Bowling Green, as to any effect on the well water as time went on? That was my first one. So this is just a comment, so I don't know if, you know, we can answer them at the end or whatever. The other thing, as to traffic safety, those 2 curves in the road for Valley View A and B, that's where the curves are. And I don't have an issue with the traffic counts because, you know, that's just the way it is. However, I'm concerned with the curve there. If, I guess only one vehicle would be coming out at once, so it's just like a laneway. Never mind. The turnaround on, I guess it was the Scrivens lot. There's no turnaround on the site plan, so it looks as though people just drive in and then back out. Or, you know, I'm just wondering how, like, if you had visitors, how that would work. And in the case of Poplar Woods, who will own the woodlots and be responsible to ensure that nobody's misusing it as a conservation area type of thing. I'm just wondering why we're doing them all at once. I think one of the writers questioned that, and I would as well. Like, so Tomar has 10 lots, and then the other two, and they seem to be out in the open. The other two sort of look like they're crammed in, like at the Muma property, which is Bellevue B. Like when you looked up the laneway, you see that their house is right there. So I'm a little concerned where if they make the rest of it a roadway, that they wouldn't have a setback. Looks like the corner of the house is going to be right there on the road. So I'm a little concerned with that. And the same with Scrivens. It looks go from the road, it looks kind of high up and then it kind of goes down. So that would be issues with stormwater as well. And I guess the biggest thing too that, okay, so our plan says on all 3 levels that if you have 3 or more lots, they need to be on municipal services. And clearly we're not prepared to put municipal services in there. So I'm just wondering how, I don't know, I'm just wondering on the path to get here where we've clearly got more than 3 lots in all 3 locations. So just a question, comments, just concerned. So that's it for me.
Okay. Is it clear? Okay. I'm hearing strange noises. Forgive me if it's causing static. Marion, did you want to address the questions about the planning pieces, the designation of the woodlot, the locations of certain lots, the condominium versus, and then maybe Rob, you can jump in and talk to the safety piece or the curve piece and the road piece.
Sure, thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'll try to address as much as possible. So, Councillor, please let me know if I've missed anything. So, with regard to who has been contacted with regard to these applications, generally we follow the Planning Act requirements for circulation for notice, and that's probably not the answer that you'd like to hear, but we have taken as much caution as possible just to let some of the neighboring and most affected landowners know about what's going on in the area. And perhaps the applicant might be able to speak to who they contacted for their town hall meeting back in January, because I believe they took a little bit more of initiative to try to bring in as many people as possible. With regard to the woodlot, so this would not be publicly owned. The St. Clair Region Conservation Authority would like to have ownership, but just due to the nature of owning some of the property and funding, it's just not possible. However, through zoning and through some of the, I guess, some of the conditions that we're putting in place, we're trying to take as much precaution as possible to protect that woodland from being disturbed or affected or negatively impacted. And that's including some of the lots that are backing right onto that woodlot. They would have to be very well aware of the importance of maintaining that woodlot, and that we'd have to ensure that no development can encroach there and further impact that area.
Okay, thank you. Is that everything then, Debbie? Does that answer your question? Are you okay with that? Okay, and Rob, did you want to jump in on the traffic question, the volume piece and the curves?
Sure, and it's kind of the same as Marion, Councillor Heffernan. If I miss anything that you requested, just remind me with your questions. So Marion covered off the woodlot ownership, the Ilderton Road curves. So under the traffic review that was completed and engineering design, they would look at sight lines along the road. So they look at the radiuses and the design of the design speed of the road, plus usually plus 10 kilometers is the allowance. So they would ensure that there's sufficient sight lines in both directions, both for cars pulling out as well as oncoming traffic from both directions. So that has been done, but we can reconfirm that. And then I know you had a question about the driveway and grading at Scrivens lot. Not exactly sure which one it is, but I think I know. So certainly some of those details, because we're only at draft plan stage and the detailed design is not there, they've certainly gone through like preliminary design to make sure that everything works functionally, but there will still be some details to work out. So it is a possibility that there could be small retaining walls in locations to make the grading work if it's tight in areas.
Okay, thank you. Just I noted somebody's name. Was there someone before Councillor Cates? No. Oh, yes, right. Councillor Arts. Yes, Councillor Arts, you had your hand up. Sorry. Go ahead. Ask your questions of Marion or the consultants.
Through your Madam Mayor to Marion and the consultants. I've got a few questions here. On the Poplar Hill Woods one, on the planning justification addendum on page 5 of 10, they did it the last time and they've done it again. They're referring to Oxbow School. I'd like to bear in mind that that's supposed to be Valley View School, so I appreciate that. And the next time I see this report that they have it right. These are going to be big lots. And I got looking at the houses that are going to be built. The front, there's going to be a house, there's going to be a well, there's going to be a exfiltration trench. And to be quite honest, I can't see an accessory building being built anywhere at the front. And I don't think you can get an access road to the back. So I would really like limits on accessory buildings and a large lot, 35% possible house. I'd also like to see a restriction on the size of the house, because these lots, you could have a 7,000 square foot house, theoretically speaking. And also in the back, you've got your septic bed and you've got your contingency bed. And I'm very tired of people building on the contingency beds. So I don't know if you can or cannot, but refuse any building on the contingency beds, which would also give the area more dirt and soil to infiltrate the water. Going to Valley View Valley View A, there's 13 proposed lots. Is the Scriven House lot 13, or is the Scriven House make 14 lots on that development? Because that then theoretically you're only, well, I can see where the Scriven House probably has to be tore down because it's too close to the road, but theoretically you're only granting 12 new lots on that one. There's some drainage issues running behind those houses on Valley View A, like it's always flooding, and that drain ends up coming up behind our municipal building. So if houses are to be built, that drain has to be redone. It's got to be done big enough so that the neighboring lands, especially behind the Valley View School, if they ever need a drainage outlet, I want a drainage outlet at least up to a line fence, because we've seen cases where a subdivision's been built and then there's a farmer trying to get a drainage outlet. That's not a good story to happen. In Valley View B, same question again. I want to make sure that if the farmer needs an outlet for drainage, I want to make sure that happens. The overflow from the stormwater pond in Valley View B, if that thing runs full tilt, I can't see the swale along the side of the road being deep enough or big enough to carry all that water. If it doesn't carry all the water out of those two twin 675 mil pipes, it'll flood those two houses' backyards, or it'll wash out the road. So I question that. I know the one property, they'd like the road to be as far away from the back corner of their line fence as possible. And that's a fair question for them. And there's another property there too. They have a pond and all that. They'd like the best efforts made not to disturb how that has been functioning. I think that's about it for now. Thank you.
Okay, I think there was that, a lot of these points relate to priorities for the residents to whom the councillor has spoken to and so forth. I think there was a question though that you might want, which was the number of lots in Valley View A. Is it 14 or 13? That clarification for the councillor. That would be, I guess, Marion.
Yes, I see the question now. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So yes, currently the official plan does not permit any significant development over 3 lots or units in the case of a plan of condominium, unless there is full municipal servicing. So what the applicant is requesting for is essentially a site-specific special policy area that would permit this development. And this could be done at the time that this policy was created in the official plan. I would assume that this was done during the time of the provincial policy statement from 2005, which was not as permissive for different types of servicing opportunities. Currently, the provincial policy statement does allow for different type of servicing strategies, including full municipal servicing, partial, as well as communal, and then finally private, where full municipal servicing is not planned or provided for by the municipality.
And the total number of new houses there is 13.
Yes, so in the special policy area, it would essentially identify that the maximum amount of new lots to be created. In these cases, it would be 10 or 13 for each special policy area.
Okay, does that answer your question, Councillor Arts?
Like, not really. Like the Valley View A, that's the Scriven. I call it Scriven property. So there's 13 proposed houses, but does that include the Scriven house, which would theoretically be 14, or is one of those 13 the Scriven house? So there's actually only 12. Like Scriven house would be a lot. Is that the 13th lot? And then there's, does it make sense to you now, or am I still saying it wrong?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Arts, I think I understand your question, but lot 13 on the plan does have the existing house on it, so there would be a total of 12 new residential lots that would be created.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions for the planner or the consultant? That was Councillor Case. You were next, I think, and then I see Councillor Scott.
Thank
Questions?
you. Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Marion and to Rob. So I believe that you've just, Marion, that you've just answered Debbie's question about the 3 lot servicing, no more than 3 lots. I know that I read, you did have it in your report. I know I read it. I couldn't find it quick enough because it will revert back to the county or the provincial plan for if you need more than 3. And I believe that's what you're saying about addressing it with a special policy statement. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And then I have a question for Rob. A little bit, it's curiosity, but I want to know for you know, because again, with the concerns of the well. So I gather that several of the people have a sandpoint well, and oh, sorry, oh yeah, there you are. I was going to say, is Rob still there? Have a sandpoint well, which, you know, there's a drilled well and a dug well, and I'm assuming that the sandpoint well isn't that deep. In new construction today, or if you were putting in a new well today, my well, you know, if I had a well and it failed, is the criteria maybe for a new well, do they have to be a drilled well now? So will any of these building lots, when they have their own septic and their own well, are they going to have drilled wells versus a dug or a sandpoint well?
So through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Cates, I'm probably going to turn that back to the developer's consultants, but I know the intent is that they will be able to drill wells, which provides better separation from the septic systems as well.
Mr. Allen, do you want to speak to that, or?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to call on Frank Caloza to respond to that. He's
Thank
an
you.
expert in the field.
Hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yes, they're going to be drilled wells. Sand points will not be able to provide sufficient quantity of water, and they're more susceptible to surface-derived contamination. The ministry doesn't look favorably upon using either large diameter wells or sand point wells in today's housing construction based on the amount of water that is required. And someone had mentioned the separation issue, which is a very good issue because at Poplar Woods, actually the whole area, if you think of a layer cake, the water that sand points and large diameter double wells provide are from the first layer of the cake. The proposed construction of the new wells, the drilled wells, go deeper into the last layer of the cake. So you've got many layers of clay and low permeability soils that separate the surface, the shallow water, which is in the first layer, from the deeper aquifer, which is in the lower layer.
Follow up, Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Caloza. I was thinking that in my mind, and I didn't want to bring it up. Would the Sandpoint water be up here and the drilled water be down there? But so thank you for your detailed answer.
Okay, and Councillor Scott, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of comments and maybe through to Marion on a couple of questions on lot sizes. So when I think of a small community like Coldstream, I'm looking around at the interactive maps here and I'm seeing a lot of the existing lot sizes. They're like 0.39 of an acre to 0.5 to 0.6. And I'm thinking that these ones, when I look at them, it says 0.2 of a hectare. So that's a fair bit smaller than what's already existing. Is that true?
Through you, to Madam Mayor, to Councillor Scott, I would need to confirm that, just to confirm the lot sizes in the area, but generally we have been sizing them so that they are relatively consistent with some of the existing development in the area, as well as consistent in size to accommodate the servicing as well as contingency area.
Okay, yeah, I wouldn't mind confirmation of that because I'm looking around, I'm just on the interactive map and I see they're coming up 0.39 and 0.43, and my math on that hectare does it about 0.21, which, you know, not splitting hairs here, but if we're concerned about some water issues and stuff like that, I could see leaving the community if it's going to be as is and just doing some infilling, that we keep them closer to being the consistent sizes that exist there, whether it be an average or not. And then that might, you know, unfortunately for the developers, cuts down maybe a couple lots, but maybe it would appease you know, some of the folks in town. Instead of 13, there's 10, or you know what I mean, something along that line. Just some comments. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Arts, did you? I thought you had a follow up. No. You're muted.
No,
You're
through
good.
Through Madam Mayor to Marion. This is I guess a clarification question. Valley View B, way back when they were approved for 5 condominiums, at that time, that's all the provincial policy statement would allow on that acreage. Since then, the laws have changed a lot, and there is that 5-unit restriction is no longer relevant, correct?
Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Arts, yes, that's correct. I wouldn't say that there was a complete restriction before and now it's just been completely lifted. There are just different opportunities and essentially what we call a hierarchy of servicing that could be explored for large developments, especially in situations where municipal servicing will not be provided or it's not planned for in the near future.
Thank you.
One more question there, Councillor Gates. You see your, I see your hand.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to, I guess, Marion, to kind of confirm, but to what Councillor Arts said as well. I just randomly picked one lot and I see, because I will work better in feet, the meters to feet, I see that this random lot that I picked is 111.5 feet wide, which is very wide by almost 200 deep. So I would think that in the whole layout of here's my lot, I need to have this big for a septic, my well has to be 50 or whatever feet away, that's kind of going to show you where your footprint of your house and how big it can be are all going to be part of that anyways, right? You wouldn't build a ginormous house and then afterwards think about your septic. Your septic's probably going to come along in that layout first. but I think, in my opinion, isn't 111 feet by almost 200 a pretty good sized lot?
Okay. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I can just add to Councillor Cates. Yeah, we will require them to provide a preliminary layout. They won't show exact house locations, but they'll show a concept plan that shows location of preliminary location of septic beds, contingencies, wells, infiltration beds, to show that all that can fit on these size lots.
Okay, so we'll move on now to the public. The questions that the public has for their consultants or the planners, or comments they wish to make. I'll remind you to please state your name and address so that the comments can be reflected in the minutes. And is there a raised hand? Oh, here we go. Elizabeth, oh, are you speaking as a public member now, or?
No, actually, prior to tying up the applicant's presentation, I was hoping to add in two submissions on behalf of the applicants.
Yep, yes, go ahead, because the applicants are supposed to speak so everybody knows what you want to say. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I do make these submissions as legal counsel on behalf of the applicants. And the applicants have heard the concerns that have been raised. They've retained a team of independent and expert consultants performing a thorough analysis of potential land use and environmental impacts. The assembly of generalized concerns and apprehensions raised by those in opposition relate to traffic, safety, well water quality and quantity. Those are hypothetical only, and they've not been supported by any evidence. With respect to the applications, they're being fully considered on their merits, and they are supported by all of the experts' reports. And I'm requesting staff and council not to give weight to those concerns that are merely apprehension or that are unsupported, and rely on the established statutory regulatory process and controls that are in place for these applications to be properly evaluated within the framework that the Planning Act provides us. And subject to any questions, those are all of my submissions.
Thank you. I should just confirm, is there any other applicant or agent for the applicant that needs to comment on anything here so we can move to the public? I don't see any hands. Okay. I don't know the order here, clerk. Is there?
Through the chair, thank you. I would just pause at this time and note that this is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on the application at this time. We welcome comments, and members of the public can use the raise hand feature to submit those comments verbally at this time. So any members of the public who are on the call at this time are welcome to use the raise hand feature now, and we will call upon you in the order that you have used that feature. Mayor DeVete, the first member of the public who has used the raise hand feature is noted as Carol Cecile, and we can call on Carol now.
Thank you kindly. Ms. Cecile?
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, you're as clear as a bell. Go ahead.
Perfect. Okay. So Carol Lee Cecile, 24265 Coldstream Road. I own the farm that Valley View A and B adjoin to in different manners. So I have a number of questions, and I think what I'll do for strategy is ask a question, get that answer satisfied, and then move on to the next question. Does that work for everyone?
No, the process is a little bit different, Ms. Cecile. You have 5 minutes to itemize your concerns. At that time, I will move to the next person. These are recorded for the minutes, and then Okay, so the clock, I'll start the clock now if you'd like to start your presentation.
Sounds good. Thank you. I did attend the January presentation. I did have a number of questions and concerns. I don't have answers to them yet, but I assume they're forthcoming. Okay, vehicular access to the open space on the non-Valley View. Sorry, I can't think of what it's called. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Not Valley View A or B. I'm wondering, in that open space, is the community going to be allowed to use that open space? If so, is there maintenance? Is there parking considerations? What is the current width of that little access chunk? And also, is it for private or public use, and is it insured? And who insures it, and who's liable? So my questions. So each development, do they have parking allocation for visitors? Is there sufficient road width to have a number of parking? Like, let's say somebody had a family gathering. Is there enough width in the roads to satisfy all those visitors? So also, one of the councillors spoke about drainage outlet access. I would like that guaranteed in writing somewhere, because I'm in the midst of looking at tiling that piece of property, and I do not want restrictions or placed on where I can put my tiling, and I need to ensure that there's an outlet somewhere, because tiling is very important to proper farming practices. So I need that guaranteed in writing. Also, the 2005 Act says greater than 3 lots that are to go on municipal water. Has that just been abandoned? Because if there was a concern then, I just don't know how that concern can go away. So I really want people to consider why that was there in the first place. And because adding, I don't know, 13 times 2, let's say 36 to 40 extra lots, that's significant. That needs to be considered. That act. The current size of the lots, are they sufficient to satisfy a house, a septic, and a well, the footprints? Because I noticed that in Valley View B, for example, there's one lot that's 0.486 hectares and the other lot's 0.235. Well, that's twice the size. So I'm just wondering why are they all a little more equal to accommodate all the services. Also, so my particular well that's 2 years old is only 47 feet deep, and that is a drilled well. So I don't know which layer that's considered as. I hope it's not the first layer. But anyway, if somebody could answer my question, because if they're all shallow like that, that's a concern for me. Also, has a well study, so I understand that there was a water study done for each project, but was the study did it encompass the impact of 36 wells at once, as opposed to, oh, we're just going to look at this little piece of property and say, what if we put 13 wells on there? Was the impact of all the 3 subdivisions factored in? And if not, I would beg that they go back and look at that comprehensively. The other thing I asked about was whether there's going to be some sort of sound abatement, and not just sound, but so when you do farming and you spray, that tends to, once you get a lot of residential, people start to complain. Well, that property was farming long before it was residential. So I need to ensure, or I need to be ensured that our farming practices aren't going to be continually complained to the city, or sorry, to the municipality. We certainly try to factor in wind and all that sort of stuff when we do spray, But the bottom line is it's going to impact people. And all of a sudden I'm one person and there, 50 people that are there to complain about the farming impacting their life. So
That will be your time, Ms. Cecile.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll move on to the next person. If the clerk would, I don't see any hands on my screen. I look to you for guidance.
Through the chair, at this time, I do not see any additional hands, but I suggest we do take a moment and reaffirm at this time if there are any members of the public who are in attendance and would like to comment at this time, please use the raise hand feature. And Mayor DeVete, I have Vicky Zavitz as the next member of the public who has used the raise hand feature.
Thank you. There we have her.
Can you hear me?
We can, Ms. Zavitz. I'll start your 5 minutes now.
Okay, it's Vicky Zavitz. I live at 7 Sydenham Drive in Coldstream. I just wanted a clarification about the wells. I appreciate that the wells are going to be drilled, but is there any restriction on the number of sand points for irrigation that are going to be added to each property? I would suspect that they would need a sand point for their irrigation. And so that would double the amount of wells or sand points that were going to be on those properties. That's the only question I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else, Mr. Clerk?
Through the chair, we have a Nancy McIntosh that used the raise hand feature and is next in line.
Thank you. Oh, I see her now.
Okay, I don't have any specific questions, but I would like to offer my 5 minutes of time to Carol for any additional concerns or questions she may have, since there aren't any other people looking to use the times.
Thank you. We've done, I mean, we've had this request before. The time is allocated, and I don't know that we're going to be going back and forth here. It's
well, I don't. I
if
feel
you have
because
questions, this is your opportunity to highlight them.
my question is, Carol, do you have any other questions?
Through the chair, at this time, we did not receive any request for a group presentation on behalf of residents ahead of this meeting. So at this time, we would not move to Ms. Cecile again.
Thank you. Are there other additional residents that have been coming on?
At this time, we have an additional raised hand from Dana and Craig Parsons.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Our question, so I'm speaking on behalf of myself, Dana, and Craig Parsons. We live at 5 Sydenham Drive in Coldstream. We did submit 2
planning and mayor and councilors our questions, and specifically on record, we would like to understand the reasoning behind the developers pumping wells at such a low gallon per minute rate, when it is noted in all plans the size of the homes, given they're going to be close to around 3,000 square feet, and the gallons per minute that were used for the test pumping. We would like to understand why such a low flow rate was used to justify water quality and quantity.
Is that your
Thank
only
you.
question then?
That is. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you kindly. Additional speakers?
Through the chair, we do not have any additional members of the public who have used the raised hand feature at this time. And I note that all members of the public who are on the call have used the opportunity to speak at this time. So there are no additional members of the public to speak.
Very well, thank you. Then, okay, this has been the public's opportunity for comments and questions. I'm going to ask I'm not sure which, Mr. Allen, do you want to take the lead on making sure that the pieces that the public has asked about, are there the professionals who want to jump in and speak to those items? I think Mr. Closa may want to speak on some of this, but I'm not sure what order you want to do this in.
I think maybe that's the best approach, Madam Mayor, is to initiate the discussion with respect to the well studies that were carried out, seeing as those are our primary concerns.
Okay, if you want to highlight those, I think the point was that this presentation that was made on January 21st is online, but I'm not sure we want to go through all of that again in detail.
Oh, sorry, Madam Mayor, I was just, if you would like a few comments from Mr. Closa, then that's fine. Yeah, so we weren't intending to do a presentation at this point in response. Maybe
the low, yes, okay. I just wanted to be clear here that we're not rehashing everything. We've got the low gallon per minute question that the Parsons are asking. I think there were a couple of questions about depth. If we want to get oh, there you are, Mr. Closa, do you want to speak to what you heard today?
Sure. Carol Cecile, her comment regarding her well 47 feet deep, I really can't comment on that because I really don't know the structure of her well and where it's located. But at that depth, generally, you're not in the upper layer, you're in the lower layer. If it's a drilled well, it should be secured. Regarding the pumping rate, the pumping rates, we typically follow Ministry of Environment D55 protocol, which sets a pumping rate at around 15 gallons per minute. And I believe we used 10. The issue of it being low, I'm not sure what she means by a low rate. That rate would suffice a house, a normal house. Whether or not they'd like to see a higher pumping rate, I don't know what the rationale would be. We follow industry practices and the radar as indicated. They're typically they're selected obviously by the size of the pump a house would use and what the aquifer would bear. When we do a pumping test, we stress the aquifer. In other words, we draw as much water as we possibly can for a period of time where we see a response in other wells nearby. And we put data loggers, which are small computer-like devices, in the well to measure very small fluctuations in the water. And we come up with curves. If you look at our report, we have a figure which is if I can show you, I don't know how to share the screen here. Right here, share screen, I'll show you this. Okay, can you all see that, the curves? This is figure 11 in our report.
We don't have anything.
Oh, you don't? Okay, let me see.
No, sorry, Miss.
How about that? Oh, sorry. How about now? Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So the blue indicates our pump test. So this is when we start stressing the aquifer. Water level drops, and then we stop, and then it goes back up. And these are this is the response in a monitoring well, which is the upper layer of the cake. that we talked about. There's no response because the two are separated by layers of clay and silt. So they're not connected. And this is the kind of data we looked for to see how quickly the aquifer recovers. And as you can see, as soon as the pump is turned off, the water level recovers quite quickly, and it follows the wells that were not touched by pumping. The faint curves in the back, that's precipitation data, because they obviously affect the pumping rate and they affect the amount of water that we're pumping. I hope that brings some clarity in that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to call on Steve Brown to address the question about the stormwater outlet that Ms. Cecile had.
Thank you.
There we go. Lucas Krabrowski is also attending. I'm not sure if he can be made a panelist. He might have a little bit more knowledge on the ins and outs of the stormwater management. But in a broad basis, I can just speak to the stormwater management. We collect the water at the perimeter of the site to bring it through the development. I'm not sure there's going to be any impact to upstream lands. Any further comments we get from the municipality as we develop our stormwater management strategy will be addressed through those comments. And we don't see any further impacts that we feel we need to address at this time. If there are any concerns that the municipality has in regards to stormwater, that'll definitely be addressed with their studies and revised appropriately. Not sure if Lucas, if you have anything to add to that, but that's what we have to say right now for stormwater management.
That's pretty good coverage there, Steve. Good job.
I'll ask Rob, do you want to jump in at all and just comment on what you just heard, and in the context of the residents' questions, add any illuminating points or process pieces?
Sure. So just what Steve said is correct. I mean, so we still have a review process to go through, right? The draft plan stage we're at is that they've done enough work to show that functionally we know that the stormwater can be dealt with on site, but there's still the details to work out. So if there needs to be some adjustments made to the design, that can still happen. They try not to take that design to a final stage until they know they can move the project, or with the intention of moving the project forward after receiving draft plan approval. So again, we still have to do a final review. They still have to provide final engineering drawings and a final report. So if there is comments from the public that we need to address through that design, there's still that possibility to do that.
Yeah, we're very preliminary stage actually. At high level now, it'll be drilled down into with respect to all of the pieces that are relating to the development, water and wastewater and stormwater and all those things.
Yeah, the fine details are still to come. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Mr. Brown, I see no, I thought his hand was coming up. Anything else, Mr. Allen, that you think needs to be covered here, or that you've got noted that the resident questions? I see Mr. Buchanan.
Hello, Mayor, through you to Ms. Parsons. The flow rates that were considered are based on the MECP's guideline, document D55 in section 4.3.2. It states 13.7 liters per minute. That's the 3 gallons per minute they're referring to. So we are following that guideline to, that's part of a typical assessment approach. And then through you, Mayor, to Ms. Cecile, the impact of 36 wells. So our study considered the Valley View A and Valley View B, and those two sites are roughly 250 meters apart. And we did a pump test to calibrate a model that a model simulation that we put together. We put 26 wells over those two sites and drew down at the suggested pump rate for 24 hours, whereas peak demand is 2 hours. And what we saw was that the aquifer did not desaturate. From the pumping, the hydraulic head drops 2 feet, and it has much more room to drop before it would desaturate the aquifer. So the results of that are that those two sites close together do not affect the quantity of water in the area. Furthermore, the Poplar Woods site is about 800 meters from Valley View A. And what we saw, Reinhard could actually bring up his model and show this, and I believe he's not on the panel here, we could add him. But the drawdown of this pumping extended 300 meters to the southwest towards Valley View B. We see a drawdown of 4 inches. So going beyond what we did is not necessary. Our conclusion was made by the study that we did, which involved the two sites. There's sufficient quantity and no expected impact. But if Reinhard would like to comment further on that, his explanation would be welcome. That's all I have.
Yes, hello. Thanks, Eric. Reinhard Zapata here from EXP Services. I'd like to add that the 24 hours simulation we executed, well, is 12 times more than here peak demands requires. No, so that would cover the consumption, the peak demand of Poplar Woods. No? Yeah, that's all I have to add. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Allen.
Madam Chair, just briefly on a couple of matters raised by Ms. Cecile.
Yes.
Firstly, with respect to parking, and this will be addressed through more detailed design, but each of the roads is intended to have a 20-meter wide road allowance. So the expectation is there would be on-street parking as well as parking in the driveways to accommodate guests. And the second comment she raised was about the ability to carry on normal farm practices, and certainly there is legislation in place provincially to address those matters. Occasionally, yes, there's an interface between the residential and agricultural communities, and there's a process there if issues arise. And certainly we can look at applying, for instance, a warning clause to the title of the properties as well, which is occasionally done, indicating that there's a farm parcel adjacent to your site, and they have the right to operate under normal practices, something to that effect. Anyway, that's something that can be explored as a possible condition of draft plan approval. And I think that's all. The only other comment I was going to make, she'd asked about Poplar Woods and the open space component and as to who would have access. And we can confirm that through discussions with the municipality as to how that proceeds. I can't comment on that at this point.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to give councillors, now that you've heard the other side of the coin too from the presenters, is there any additional or new question or something that needs to be highlighted, commented on, questioned? Okay, I don't see any hands. So we have a motion before us, and that motion is that report PLA 14/2022 regarding Poplar Woods files and zoning bylaw amendment be received for information, and that report PLA 15/2022 regarding Valley View A files be received for information, and further to that, the report PLA 16/2022 regarding Valley View B files be received for information. And do I have a mover, please, and a seconder for that? I see Councillor Arts and Councillor Scott. Are there any opposed to receiving? And that is carried. Thank you very much, everyone, for your questions and patience. And we can now move on to correspondence, as there are no notices of motion. There are 5 items here. Is there anything that anyone wants to ask about in the correspondence piece? Seeing no hands, then we have a motion that the Council for Municipality of Middlesex Centre receives correspondence items 10.1 through 10.5 as information. Mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Shipley and Councillor Cates. Any opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. I'm going to look to our Deputy Mayor Brennan to please give us an update on the County Council meeting that was held on February 22, 2022. That was 2/22,
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
2022.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It was a fairly short meeting in February. We got a report on response times from the paramedic system. There are a couple areas where we're a little long getting to people than the guidelines call for, but they're working to remedy those problems. A couple of tenders on hot mix and cold mix asphalt tenders were received. The land along Highbury Ave for Quadro, that request that the landowner wanted it waived was denied, and the county will be looking to secure that land. Strathmere Lodge had to do a service accountability agreement. These agreements are required for government grants, so that has been carried out so that we are eligible for county grants for the Strathmere Lodge. There's some road widening happening on Albert Street in Strathroy. FCM, the Women's Caucus, they got a grant of about $27,500 or $2,750 for a women's election school that's being held on Saturday, March 26th from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock at the Wellness Center in Kamoka. If anybody's interested, you can register for that, and there's a lunch provided at that also. Modernization funding, page 3 for the county. They put in 4 different applications and waiting to see what happens there. Next, we have a budget meeting on March the 8th, starting at 10 o'clock in the morning, where the county budget will be presented. And then that's in the morning, and then we have council at 1 o'clock that afternoon on March the 8th. And those are the main highlights. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Any hands up? Okay, seeing none, then thank you for giving us an update today. The next item is our closed session. So going to have to move out of our regular session and move into closed. So we'll be dropping off. Could I have a motion to go out of regular meeting, please? And a seconder, Councillor Scott and Councillor Heffernan. Any opposed? Okay, and we'll bear with the technical people till we get ourselves moved.
Thank you. Bear with us a few moments.